Margaret Hoover, who I'm pretty nonplussed about as a supposed journalist. I think she's just a low-rent Katie Couric. But she was named the new host of Firing Line, I think about a year or two ago. Still on PBS. And she interviewed Congresswoman Airport Designation. And she sat there with a pose at the end, and she wrote, "Thank you at Ocasio 2018." This was before she turned into airport designation. She interviewed Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She said, "Thank you, Ocasio 2018, for your honesty, authenticity, and willingness to engage in a respectful exchange of ideas. But we have to get you some new sneakers before you head to Congress." Then she tags a Firing Line. And I just simply quote tweeted and I said, "This isn't Firing Line. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it the Margaret Hoover Hour. Hoover on Hoover. I don't know. Call it whatever you want. But it's not Firing Line." And this is kind of what she's done with Firing Line since. She just plays interviewer. She'll interview Republicans. She'll interview Democrats. She's more hostile to Republicans. And again, my problem isn't that it's Margaret Hoover. My problem is that they're taking the Firing Line brand and changing it and effectively erasing it. Margaret Hoover was also one of the 4 women on set with her hands up, don't shoot, while one of her co-anchors next to Sally Cohn wrote, "I can't breathe." In that interview, that's the famous interview where Ocasio-Cortez says, "I'm not an expert on geopolitics issue." And I said that this is the kind of thing that Buckley would have challenged her on. Not just asked her, I want to go back to this, and I don't mean to push. I don't think Margaret Hoover knew that I wrote for National Review. My point is this, is Buckley was not just an interviewer. Buckley hosted a show from a conservative point of view. It was explicit in Buckley promoting conservative ideas, and he challenged guests who questioned them. It just wasn't about civilized tone. That's what the media thing was. Buckley would have ripped Ocasio-Cortez to pieces. Not wish her well on her journey to Congress, or talk about her shoes. When Ocasio-Cortez talked about that occupation of Palestine by Israel, Hoover asked her to elaborate on that. Buckley wouldn't ask her to elaborate. He'd tell her there's no such thing and then ask her who put such a silly idea into her head. And that was my problem. And if Hoover can't host Firing Line from the position of conservatism and conservative ideas instead of acting embarrassed to offend who she's talking to, then she shouldn't be hosting a show called Firing Line. If you want to be a 60-minute style interview on a 60-minute style show, fine. Be that. Don't pretend that's Firing Line. And don't pretend that you're Buckley's successor. I got into this whole back and forth with her, and she said to me at the time of this was like July of 2018, that I must have missed the part where I asked her how she explained that capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty than other economic system in human history. He wouldn't have asked her that. Buckley would explain to her why she's a nimwit for believing the things that she believed. And then she said to me, apparently you haven't watched Buckley with socialist Michael Harrington or Norman Thomas, but I invite you to watch them and others at the Hoover Institute and the Hoover Archives. And here's a link to the firing line. And I had to gently remind her that only one of us was hired at National Review. And that I have, in fact, watched those shows. Buckley wasn't known for civil discourse, folks. That's a myth. People wanted to go into who she's married to. She's married to John Avalon, who is a CNN progressive analyst. He came from the Daily Beast. Who cares? I don't care about that. But my point is that PBS took the firing line brand, and what I think they're doing very purposely was shifting it and erasing what it was. Because again, it's not about sitting down and questioning someone. It's from the show is from a perspective of a conservative. And we can't have that anymore. Is the bigger point. So that's my Margaret Hoover rant. It's not on her personally. But if she's not going to challenge her guests from a conservative perspective, then what is she doing on that show? Is my issue. It's not an easy job, but it beats working for a living. Your subscriptions keep the podcast ad and sponsor free, and that allows me to retain some semblance of political integrity in this crazy world and business. And it also gives me a lot of freedom to add your input, answer your questions, read your thoughts, interact with you. All over Margaret Hoover if I want to. I don't have to worry about mobs and Media Matters going after sponsors, or my personal life or my livelihood.